It literally everything he has points out.
Yeah, trans men and women are men and women. Yep, I agree.
No, all of the things. So here's the thing: you kind of contradicted yourself, right? So trans men, men and women are men and women. Yes, you have that correct. Because you're either born a woman or a man. Yeah, so a trans woman or a man, yes, that is correct, would be a woman or a man because you're either born one of the two ways.
Hey, friend, there has never been a person alive, living, or dead who was born a man. It's never happened before.
How? Okay, so can you articulate that idea?
Sure, I'll do it with I'll do it with the woman gender. Do you think a 1-year-old baby is a woman?
I think a 1-year-old baby, yes, that either has XX or XY chromosomes, yes, is either a male gender or a female gender. Yeah, I absolutely think a 1-year-old baby,
male are sex terms, friend, not gender terms. They are sex terms. But I just want to really quickly. I just want to be sure.
1 second. Can you kind of repeat yourself? It's kind of relapsed here. I can't.
Well, you need to turn off the stream. Is the stream on? Turn the stream off. Otherwise, you're going to get an echo.
Hold on. Let me do that. Sorry about that. All right. So yeah, let's go ahead and go ahead.
So again, male and female are sex terms. They refer to sex categories, where man and woman would be gender terms and refer to gender categories. These are going to be two different things completely.
So you have sex terms and you have gender terms, right? I understand that. What differentiates a gender term between a personality, right? So if I am 26 years old, and this is, just a question. I was born with a penis, right? I was born a male. Okay. I want to switch to a female. What makes that? Okay, so say I get surgery and all that type of stuff. What actually changes my? Are you saying is the argument that if I get that surgery and stuff, it's just changing my gender or my sex, or are you saying it's both?
I'm sorry. You asked like 4 questions. What is the actual question that you want me to answer?
So if I get gender reassignment surgery, say I'm a 26-year-old male and I want to be a female, if I do that, right? If I get gender reassignment surgery, how is that saying? Say I was born a male, right? How is that saying that I'm now a female? That could be just personality things that I want to maybe wear female clothing, or I want to get my nails done, or I want to do this and that. How does that actually make me definitively a female?
Let me walk you through what sex and gender is on like categorical levels so that we can answer this question, okay? Because it's a bit more involved than just like a base level answer. When it comes to human sex and human sexual reproduction and our sexual makeup, it is split into 2 distinct categories. We have our genotypic
male and female.
No. Those are examples. I'm talking about the categories of sex. We have genotypic sex and phenotypic sex. Genotypic sex. This refers very specifically to your chromosomes. So genotypic sex would be
your body parts and stuff like that. Genotypical
just your chromosomes,
sex, right?
Just your chromosomes. Genotypic
so phenotypical
about
sex
your genes.
Is like your actual outside view, right?
Yes,
like that's your actual characteristics.
100%. Phenotypic sex would refer to the primary and secondary sexual characteristics. So this can be your genitalia, your hormones. It can even be the way your body is built, like your broad shoulders. It can be like males typically tend to have more like more muscle. They're taller. Like all of these things can be considered phenotypic attributes. Genotypic sex.
Yeah, I agree with that.
We cannot change our genotypic sex, but phenotypic sex is a modifiable trait of ours. So somebody can be genotypically male, go through different procedures so that they are now phenotypically female.
Okay,
and have
I agree
the gender
with you.
identity of woman.
Okay, so all right, I'm not even okay. I completely understand the point there. I'm one to not defend a point if I'm wrong, but I have some questions surrounding that, right? So, okay. So you obviously have genotypical male, and then you have a phenotypical male. So phenotypical is, if I'm on the right page here, right, would be the outside characteristics, right? So maybe genitalia, things like that. So what would it, and I'm trying to figure out how to articulate this here. Okay, so you have a genotypical and a phenotypical. So if somebody goes through the surgery or through the treatments to become a phenotypical male or a phenotypical female, right? Say they were a genotypical male and goes through the process of becoming a phenotypical female. How does that? I'm trying to figure out a way to articulate it here. How does that make her? I mean, even phenotypically, right? Even if she has the view of being a female once a male, right? Even if she has a view of being a female, how does that make her an actual female, though? If that makes sense. So I get like there's certain woman things that you can go through to make it kind of like that, but an actual female. So from my understanding, a woman born at birth has certain genitalia that can do certain things that men cannot, right? So I get going through maybe a surgery or a process to make it phenotypically like that, but that still doesn't mean genetically you have. That still doesn't mean genetically.
But again, this is why
gender, right?
But wait. So first of all, the gender doesn't change. Your gender identity tends to be an immutable part about you. So your gender identity tends to be pretty constant throughout your life. So your gender is not changing. It's just about those phenotypical attributes changing enough to where you would be deemed phenotypically a female. Right? Nobody's making the claim that their genotypic sex is changing.
If nobody knew you, they could look at you and say, "Hey, that is a woman," right?
Yeah, I'd say there's a large number of trans women who have gone through. I don't like the term, but the term that's used is passing. I'm not really a fan of that term, but there's a large group of trans women who look indistinguishable from cisgender women. Right, because they'll look indistinguishable from like what you would typically, like a typical cisgender woman, they would look indistinguishable from that.
But as far as genotypical, right? As far as actual reproduction systems, right? As far as
your reproductive system would be just real quick. Everything besides chromosomes would be considered phenotypic. So your reproductive system is a phenotypic attribute.
Okay, and so in a way I understand that, right? I understand phenotypical attributes. I, maybe look at someone who was once a man. I didn't know them before, and I can say almost definitively that's a woman, So I can do that, but and this is maybe, just where the kind of like fine details come in. Maybe the person I met who was once a man, who has gone through the phenotypical process of changing that, and now looks like a woman, but at the end of the day, reproductive organs are still the same, and I get that's genotypical, I get that's genetics, and phenotypical can be changed, but in a way, though, what doesn't still, like I look at a woman or a man who I've never met that's gone through, all these processes. I look at them and phenotypically, I cannot tell they're different from.
Well, so let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question.
But genotypically,
let me ask you a question because this might help us clear some stuff up on here. When it comes to someone being a woman, do you believe there's a necessary condition that must be met? So do you believe that there is something that all women have to have? There's like something intrinsic to everyone that's a woman. And if so, what would this thing
be? I would say no. And the reason, which is kind of defeating my own argument slightly, and the reason I say that is because, maybe you have XXY instead of XY, or XX, maybe you have XXY, or, certain different things to where I don't know. Coming from a point of view to where, like, I have a wife, right? And my wife has, bear children. Asking her to be a woman is kind of like, which I guess is kind of subjective in a way, right? But to be a woman is like to go through
you're
that
getting there. You're
puberty
getting there,
point where
friend.
you
You're getting
have
there.
that.
I just
What do you say?
I said you're getting there. I want to really pin down this because I agree. I don't think in creatures like humans where our sexual makeup is so varied and consists of thousands of different traits and genes, we can point to one necessary thing that one must have to be a woman. And because there is
I
there is
definitely don't.
missing that
Yeah, I
one
definitely don't think you
necessary
can point to
component.
one necessary thing. I don't think that's
Exactly.
possible.
Because that necessary condition does not exist, I think to say trans women can't be women and to bar them from a category with no necessary condition is just wholly unfair.
And in a way, look, and I'm going to be 100%. And in a way, I agree with that, right? I think all right, so I have met people that I've been friends with a long time that tend to have more feminine characteristics than masculine, and some of them are like I have family members that are either transgender or queer or whatever, and it's not even like that type of stuff. It's just more so like with the gender, right? So no, I can't definitively say one thing makes a woman. I can't definitively say one thing does. But I feel, and this is again opinion, but I feel like things like going through puberty and having certain things that happen as a woman versus a man, or bearing children, going through labor and doing stuff like that. I just feel like that more to me is and again, I can't objectively say that, but that more to me is what a woman is like. That's what I've been, almost, and this would be almost anybody you talk to. This is what I've been taught like since I was a child. It's
So the issue
men are men, women
that
are
we're going to
women.
run into here, right? The issue we're going to run into here is like twofold. One, yes, most of us are taught as kids that sex and gender are sort of just interchangeable things, but that's because we're teaching kids the very bare bones of this concept, and then they tend to never learn the more intricate neurobiology and reproductive biology
Yeah,
aspects of sex
yeah.
and gender past that, right? When it comes to this, right? There is not a single thing you can point to when it comes to the female sex that you would say all females have to have either, because like we can say
No,
it's
yeah,
reproduction, but both me and you would agree that a woman who can't reproduce is still a woman. A woman who can't birth children is still a
yeah.
woman,
That's
right? So
that's a
again,
fucking
when there
fair
is
point.
yeah, when there is no the only thing that I think we could equate to being a necessary condition is just having a gender identity that's in alignment with womanhood, in alignment with being a woman. Like that's really the only thing, because everything else is going to exclude people from the category that you wouldn't exclude. And as soon as there's an exception, then the necessary condition instantly falls apart. There can be no exceptions in a necessary condition.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you made a fair point because there was a woman I was with in my past who medically could not have children, and obviously I saw her as a woman. So, um, yeah, honestly, you have a good point there. But so another thing that I have, all right. So this is kind of way another thing that I think about too. If you're of age to make legal decisions, because I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think I saw one of the things, under the points that you'd like to debate about as maybe minor gender affirming care. Again, correct me if I'm wrong.
I mean, yes,
But
one of the real, but before we get there, I just want to, are you in agreement now from the previous conversation that trans men and women would be men and women based on everything we just went over and talked about?
So I'm not going to say no because you made a lot of really fair points. You did, and I'm not going to say no about that. Just because of even down to the points of like, what happens if a woman can't have, kids, like that kind of brought into perspective how that works. And so in a way, I will agree with that. I will agree with that. Um,
All right, we like to see that
in a
change. We
way, I
like to
will
see
agree with that.
change, guys. We like to see change. Let's get some W
I'm not
Zeeks
gonna
in the
lie.
chat, guys.
You did make a fair point, but I still, obviously I still have some questions about that. But right here, right now, given the time that we have, you made a fair point, and I will give you that.
All
So
right.
my next question, though. Okay, so which if we had more time, maybe we could get to a little bit deeper. My next question. So okay, say there is a biologically born woman, right? And another biologically born woman. And one has
So
gone through the
just
process
FYI,
of,
I don't like
of
using the term biological women just because like all humans are going to be biological. So like I what
so
we would
what
say
term do
is
you prefer?
cisgender woman, right? You're specifically talking about women
Okay, so
whose
one that's
gender
born.
identity
Okay,
aligns
so
with their sex.
what would, if you don't mind me asking, what would your definition of a cisgender woman be?
It would be somebody whose it'd be a woman whose gender identity aligns with the sex that they were observed at birth.
So if you were talking to, theoretically, if you were talking to a young female, a cisgender woman, she was born as a woman, and her identity is a woman because that's what she quote unquote was taught from your perspective. That's what a cisgender woman would be, even if she is maybe 6 years old
Well, if
and
she's 6 years old, I wouldn't call her a
doesn't know
woman.
about any of the other stuff going on because she was born with female parts and what she was taught identifies as a woman. That's a quote unquote
So
cisgender
let me
woman.
give you
Are we
some
on the same?
let me give you some information on how gender develops in the human brain from birth on. So
Okay,
one, I wouldn't call
please
a
do.
6-year-old a woman. I would call them a girl. I'm just very clear about how I want to
Okay.
use those terms, just because
Yeah. Well. Yeah.
you know.
Well. Okay. So sorry about that. You
No,
kind of know what
I
I.
just
Yeah. Sorry
I just
about
want to
that.
make sure you don't get trapped in
Yeah.
the
Yeah. No. No. No.
yeah.
I didn't mean
I
by.
wouldn't
Yeah.
yeah.
Sorry. Sorry about that.
So
Yeah. That is. Sorry about that.
when it comes to gender in humans, humans typically are able to recognize gender in other things as early as 2 years old. So they can point to people and go boy, girl, based on just base level
Okay.
phenotypic
Right.
observations.
Right. Yeah.
Children start to
Right.
understand gender
So.
within themselves as early as 3. So as early as 3, a child can know that they are a boy or girl, and they can even start to feel some level of unease at being called the wrong thing, right? Typically, then we see gender
So.
dysphoria can like where it's that
So.
extreme stress about the disconnect between your gender and sex. That can
Okay.
start. That
Yeah.
typically starts as early
Okay.
as 7.
All right. So understood. So I get your point. Just a question. How do we definitively know? Which maybe I haven't done, enough research on this. Maybe I haven't read in, enough papers. How do we definitively know that at 3 years old, a child, whether boy or girl, can say, I'm uneasy being called a boy or a girl? How do we definitively know that? Maybe I'm misunderstood, or if that's the point you're trying to make, how do we definitively know that? Is there research behind that? Is there, some sort of paper that says we've done, studies on age groups from 2 to 5 that says at age 3 you can become uneasy with being called a female or a male? Is there
Yeah.
any? And if there is, just
So okay. So when it comes to understanding our figuring out a child's understanding of gender, it really is just a communication thing. It's about the child saying and talking about it. When it comes to whether a child
yeah.
might have a gender identity that differs from their sex, we look for 3 specific things. We look for insistence on it, we look for persistence on it, and we look for consistence on it. So are they insistent that they are like, so let's say I have somebody that a child that was born male. So I've been calling them
Yeah.
boy, and they're insistent from the ages of 3 and 4 that they're not a boy. They might not
because
even call
they're not a
themselves a
boy.
girl. They
Yeah,
might not even say
I
girl. They might
understand
just
that.
say, I'm
I get where you're
insistent
coming
that I'm
from.
not a boy. They're consistent in it. So it happens all the time, always. They never falter in this,
So,
and they're persistent in it. If this is the case,
so
I'm going to say there's a likelihood that this child might have gender incongruence.
okay, and I get the point you're making, but from my point of view, how do you know that this child that is 3, 4, 5 years old just doesn't? Okay, so all right, let me give you two examples here, right? Maybe one is around one woman, quote unquote, one man, both who were born woman, one who went through the process to become a man. How do we know that that 3, 4, 5-year-old child isn't just getting ideals from their parents that is and this is just a question, maybe confusing them on what it really is, or another thing, right? Maybe they're just too young to understand and grasp the concept of the differences because, in all fairness, a male and a female a female is proven to hit puberty a little bit earlier than a male, right? So how do we know that this conceptualized idea didn't just come from them being so young, that these, maybe chromosomes didn't get expressed yet? Or
So
how do we know
so
that
it's a very easy
at this
answer.
age that they maybe just don't understand the idea
It's a I,
and use that as a thing?
so it's a very easy answer because we don't see a high level of regret in people detransitioning, even those that transitioned as children.
As age progresses, we don't see a high level of regret.
No.
And which just a question again, can you tell me about what time period this occurs in? So through maybe they get a gender reassignment surgery at 14, and
Well, first of all, they're not
at
getting gender
28 they
reassignment
get
surgeries at
questioned. Which
14. So
okay,
that's
I
they don't
don't know. I don't know about this
typically
stuff really
you don't
at all.
receive any surgeries until you're 18 or over. But
That
we
makes sense.
have
Until you can
we
give
look at
consent, right?
we look at all these children that might be diagnosed gender dysphoric as early as age 7, and then we can follow them through life. They don't detransition. The rate right now, the current regret
So
rate is 1% on the high end.
and the 1% on the high end of what? Can you give me context behind that? I think we broke up a little.
1% on the high end of regretting your gender transition. So on the high end, it's looking about
Okay,
1%.
and how do we know that maybe this isn't coming from? And again, just a question: how do we know that this isn't maybe coming from the ideals of the parents who's raising the children?
Because this
Do we
exists
know this
well,
definitively, or is
because
this
trans
just a?
people, we do, because a lot of trans people are born to conservative parents.
Well, and I understand that, I do, but just because you're born to conservative parents doesn't mean that you're naturally conservative. It doesn't mean that you're
No,
naturally
that
democratic.
it means that
You could be
it
independent.
means that the parents aren't influencing you to be one way, because the parents don't want you to be trans. The other thing is, transgender people are
But
currently,
so
wait,
say okay,
real
and
quick,
sorry to
real
interrupt.
quick. Hold on, Zeke,
Really
Zeke,
quick.
Zeke.
Speaking on the last topic, speaking on the last topic, really fast. How do we know that? Okay, so maybe they're not directly influencing. Let's say you need to be trans, you need to be this, you need to be that. But how do we know that one of the parents maybe isn't obviously like not directly influencing, but subconsciously? Obviously all kids look up to parents. They all look up to moms, dads, both moms, both dads. So how do we know that? Like, how do we know definitively that they're not just looking up to their parents and following in the same footsteps?
Because there's zero evidence of this anywhere. There's none. There's no evidence, Zeke. Here's the
But
thing. Here's the thing.
I
Hold
just,
on, Zeke. Hold on. Listen.
I'm listening. I'm listening.
Being trans in current day America is one of the hardest things you can do. You have
I,
half the country.
I'm
Hold on.
not. Look,
Let
I'm
me.
not.
Hold on.
I'm
Let
not
me.
doubting that.
Just let me get through this real quick.
I got you. Go
You
ahead.
have
Go ahead.
half the country coming for you and hating your existence. You have lawmakers trying to put in policies that will quite literally affect you, affect how you live, affect your
Yeah,
life. You have a
yes,
higher rate for comorbidities when it comes to like mental health issues.
so
You get bullied constantly. You're 40% of children that
yeah,
come out as trans are homeless because their parents
yeah,
kick them out of the house, right? Like there are like
yeah,
this
yeah.
idea that
So
anybody
is
would
this
do this
the
without it being
evidence as to why maybe the parents wouldn't be teaching it to the kids because of these statistics? Is this the evidence behind it?
sure. Well, no, the evidence that they're not teaching it is that gender identity cannot be
Not
influenced by
practically.
your
Yes,
gender
not
identity
practically,
cannot
I
be
get that. But is this
influenced by
some of the
somebody else.
evidence that maybe is being used as to why they're not teaching their children the same thing?
No, it's just that your gender identity cannot be influenced by another person.
Okay. And okay, so with that, maybe again, maybe we agree to disagree as far as gender identity not being influenced. I do personally, again, we can agree to disagree.
But
Personally,
Zeke,
I
you
do
have no
think that
evidence that it
between a
is. You have no evidence that it
no, I
can't.
don't. You're right. You're right. I 100% don't. I have not made a scientific study. I have no evidence that having transgender parents or gender fluid parents affects the gender identity of your child. You're right. I do not have any evidence supporting that. But personally, again, just opinion. Personally, from things that I've seen in my lifetime and from people I've been around, which I could be completely wrong, from things that I have seen personally, I do believe that your parents, no matter what they identify as, gender fluid, cisgender, whatever, I do think personally that has an effect on the child's life. Children look up to parents more than anything, and again, personally, I think they look up to that. So whether it be they don't teach them at all, but maybe they look up to the parent as, look, this my parent has gotten so much freedom for this, or they fit in now because of this, or this and that. Maybe they see that and act on that. Again, I could be completely wrong. That's just my personal opinion.
Okay. Well, again, I just want to say, agree to disagree makes sense when both sides have evidence and they just can't
Yeah,
come to it.
yeah,
But when one side has no evidence for a claim,
yeah. No,
you can't
yeah.
really agree to disagree, right? It
And,
just
and,
becomes
and again,
anecdotes.
I do have to agree with a lot of the points you have been trying to prove, because some of the things you do have a very valid argument against, and you did a very good job articulating those ideals. To the point I kind of question some of the things that I believe is true. But at the same time, there are certain things. All right, so I see you have like I think it's 7 different PowerPoints, right? Um, so like the minors deserve gender affirming care, right? So we never really got into like super deep detail about that, right? So if someone who is which can you define, before I get this wrong? Can you define what minor gender affirming care is?
Can I define what yeah, it would just gender affirming care is just a list of uh treatments, both behavioral, psychological, social, and medical, to uh help somebody more uh what's to affirm somebody's gender identity. Like it's just a list of treatments to do that.
Yeah, no. I kind of understand the gist. So just a question, touching back on a topic that we previously discussed on. You said that you have to be 18 to come up to the conclusion that you want to have gender affirming surgery, right?
Typically the age for like bottom surgery is going to be 18. Yes.
Okay, so with asking, with the topic that you have, what age would you deem to be okay to have minor gender reaffirming surgery at?
Well, I think we should wait till 18 for bottom surgery. I think it's a fine standard to set. 17
So,
if like you can
and
prove
this
that
is
it's
a
like
question.
super needed.
Okay, so maybe I misunderstood this, and so with when you said minor gender affirming care, or let me kind of look back over this. So yeah, gender affirming care. So minors deserve gender affirming care. If the answer to that question is 18 would be a good age to wait until. So how would that be minor gender affirming care, or are you talking about more so therapy and
No.
and
It's that, and I'm not saying that we're doing minor affirming care. I'm saying that minors deserve gender affirming care. So like we should be able to give
okay,
gender affirming care to people under the age of 18 as long as it's developmentally appropriate.
okay, so what would be, and this can be super broad terms, what would be considered developmentally appropriate?
We'd be looking at the Tanner stages, so basically the stages of puberty. So for instance, pubertal suppressants you can do around Tanner
Yeah.
stage
Yep.
2. Uh, HRT typically around Tanner stage 3 or 4, I think. And then like you would do surgeries towards the end of puberty, going towards 18. So like yeah, that's just how we would do it based on the
So
developmental
so
stages of
stage
puberty that you're in.
Okay, so the stage, how many stages? You know, I'm not familiar with this. So how many stages are there
I think there's
in
5
general?
Tanner
Is it one
stages.
through four?
No, I think there's 5 of
Okay,
them if I'm
okay, yeah,
remembering correctly.
okay. And the gender affirming care doesn't start until, as you quoted, the second stage.
Typically, social gender affirming care can start whenever, but medical affirming care typically starts around Tanner stage 2.
Okay, and what separates these stages? Is it age or is it
No,
developmental milestones?
it's gonna be developmental milestones. I just don't know what they are specifically when it comes to the Tanner stages.
Okay,
But it's
okay,
we have age ranges that they typically happen within, but it's other developmental milestones that happen during puberty.
yeah. I mean, it can, yeah, give or take. Admittingly, you don't, which I understand this. You're not a doctor, but you don't know exactly what stages one. You know a broad term, but not exactly what developmental stages 1 through 5 is, right?
Yeah, I just don't know the specifics. Yeah.
Yeah, no. And that's fine. So stage 2, you said this is when they can begin to get gender affirming care, right? Like
State
social
Tanner
gender affirming
stage
care,
2
or
tends
maybe
to
it's
be
not
when they
surgery.
no Tanner stage 2 tends to be when you start pubertal suppressants. So when you start puberty blockers.
And you said 10 or stage 2, if I'm hearing correctly, like
Tanner
age
stage
10
2.
or stage 2.
No, Tanner stage 2. They're called the Tanner stages.
Okay. Oh, okay, understood. Okay, so all right, so it's not really based on age, more developmental milestones, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so and kind of again back to a subject that we had touched on. If it is something in the lines of like, if it's something in the lines of stage 2, whatever age that may be, right? How and again, it might. I don't know the research on a cisgender male and a cisgender female having a baby, and then that baby, all of a sudden wanting to, to do surgeries and stuff like that. Um, I guess the question I'm kind of asking, or trying to ask, is more so like, hey, let me try to articulate this here. So how do I know, again, as stage 2, say they want that social gender affirming care? How do I know, again, that maybe wasn't the direct implication of a mother or father, or maybe somebody who has gone through these surgeries? How do I know that wasn't almost directly directly taken from that. Like I
So
understand
again,
that,
it's
yes,
going to be
some.
because there is zero evidence. There's zero evidence in any regard that your gender identity can be influenced by somebody else's will to make you some sort of gender. There's just no evidence for it.
And again, as of now, like I do understand that there's no evidence to support it. So as of right now, like technically as it stands, if there is no evidence to support it, then yes, you technically in this situation are winning the argument. But in real life, children look up to their parents a lot, and there might not be a definitive study or statistic that can give an answer to how many children, maybe make decisions because of their parents.
So one of
But
the issue I have right now, Zeke, is you're engaging in confirmation bias. You have this idea, right, that you think that there might be people being influenced, and you're now wanting to seek out evidence to prove that ideal instead of looking at all the relevant evidence we have and making your conclusion based on that.
So I'm not going to disagree, but I'm not going to directly agree. So in a way, I can't really seek out evidence because there is no evidence behind it. But that's almost in a way, that can go for, which I don't know, but there's in a way this almost goes for the argument too. There's no evidence that that anybody has an effect on children's gender identity. But again, there's no evidence on that. So while there's no evidence for what I'm saying,
Well, wait, we actually have evidence to the contrary. We do have evidence to the contrary.
Go ahead, sorry.
We have evidence that that you can't influence it. When we look at things like regret rates, detransition rates, as well as things like what happened with people like David Reimer, where his parents tried to forcibly raise him as a girl, and it didn't work because his gender identity could not be influenced. They couldn't convince him that he was a girl, right? It was impossible. He always knew he was a boy, even though they tried to raise him as a girl.
Okay, and so I do understand that. Maybe there's, and again, this might come down to the agree to disagree thing. Again, maybe there's one child born in a dozen that can say, you know what, whatever you're trying to teach me is not what I am, and that's not what I'm willing to do or what I'm going to do. But how do we know that, maybe 9 out of 10 or whatever it is? I'm literally just making up a BS statistic, but how do we know that blank out of blank kids aren't being taught that this is what they are before they can even really learn it? Do you know what I mean? Like, how do we know that these ideals aren't being, which again, there's no evidence, and I understand that, I get that, but how do we know that there's these ideals have to be getting transferred down one way or another? I mean, I do understand that maybe there has been children that at the ages of whatever, 5 to 16 to 18, whatever, any human, I understand that there's maybe been a time, a period of time where like, yeah, I don't feel as though who I am, or I don't feel as though, I am what I appear to be, and I understand that, but I feel like that's more so the children who do that out of, not out of what the parents teach them. I feel like that's more rare than not. You know what I mean? Like, maybe there's not evidence to support it, but I feel like the children that just come out and say, I don't feel like a male or I don't feel like a female, I feel like those children at some point have been maybe taught something that has made them question that.
Okay,
and
so really quickly, again, you're
I know
just
there's not any
using
evidence.
you're just using I feel statements. You're just saying I feel this is the case.
I understand
all
that.
the
I
mountains
understand.
of
And
evidence tell us the otherwise. So like we can't go down. We literally can't go down this. We can't keep going down like, well, I feel. Yeah,
it's a rabbit hole.
It's a rabbit hole with no.
I understand that.
The last thing I'm gonna say, and then I do want to move on because there are people waiting to get in.
Okay.
If There is a mass amount of people in this country, in America specifically, that do not like trans people, that want to discredit them at every step of
Yeah.
every step of the ladder. If it was possible,
Okay.
okay, to have studies that showed this, they would have brought them out already, because the studies would have vindicated their
But
vilification
why
of
is
trans
it
people.
not possible? Is my question. It's socially acceptable now to be,
We'll
you know,
have to get into
trans
that
or
another. We'll have to
queer.
get into that another time. But I do got to bring up more people.
Okay. Okay, and look, I understand. I appreciate you having a logical, actually articulate conversation with me. I'd love to speak to you again when you have more time.
All right, you have a good one.
All right, you too, man.